back to another episode of Conversations with Therapists. Today we're so excited because we are joined with Annie Danberg. Annie is a lifelong artist and art therapist based in San Rafael, California. And honestly, I'm just so excited to talk to you because you're our first and only art therapist that we've had on here, and I just don't know enough about that. So I'm excited to learn about your process and your painting and how it kind of moves into your art therapy world and how you got started. So welcome, Annie.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here as well.
Good. I'm excited too. Okay, so I want to talk more about your art and how you got going with that, but I love how you have several different options for people. It looks like you have art therapy and then you have classes and in-person and groups and workshops. So how did you start this journey? I guess we'll backtrack. How did you get started with your journey and personal journey in art, and how did it kind of go from there?
Great. So we have to roll the time clock way back.
Yeah.
First of all, I was one of those kids who I remember the very first box of 64 Crayola crayons that I got. I don't even know if they make this box anymore. It's a little sharpener in the back. And I was just enthralled. I was one of those kids that, like once I grabbed a hold of a pencil or a crayon, I kind of didn't let go, which served me really well around middle school, third grade, fourth grade. So I have dwarfism. It's not apparent from this kind of head up view. And there's bullying, there's surgeries, kind of a lot of emotional and physical pain.
Right.
And I loved to draw. And I just noticed some really profound shift that when I was drawing, there was this quiet. I just felt like, looking back, I don't think these were the words I would have used as a 9-year-old. I felt like I was at home. There's
Cool.
just such a deep, everything's like just here. It's like kind of that deep meditation place. And because I like drawing so much and I drew a lot, I got good at it. And because I got good at it, I got lots of praise for it. So I kept drawing. It was like one of those positively reinforcing events. And so that was really my first, my kind of like my entree into art as a healing modality, I guess. Yeah, I would.
That's incredible. As
Yeah.
a person who has an 8-year-old daughter, I can't imagine her actually finding some sort of activity that gives her brain like any peace, let alone somebody who is dealing with so much more than the usual 9-year-old, 8-year-old girl stuff. And I don't even think like up until in my mid 30s, I found an activity that quieted my brain. So it must have been really, really impactful for you to recognize it and then kind of roll with it from there.
Yeah, I
When
think,
did you start realizing you were so good at it? Were your parents like, this could be something for you? This doesn't have to just be.
yeah, that's a kind of a slippery slope.
Yeah.
I think kids these days I think the pressures, formative pressures are much higher. You know, I was a kid in the 60s and, it was sort of like, yeah, make it up. Anything goes. It was, I think, a more liberal time for the imagination.
Mhm. Yeah, I think so too. That's my parents are that, grew up in that time too. And my dad talks about like I mean, this is college, but he worked 2 jobs in college and still went to school and paid for it all. And he's like, you can't do that now. Like, it's just not even feasible with how much homework there is plus the cost.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But the question around my parents saw that I had this talent and, they would give me opportunities, lots of art supplies. But when it came to like choosing a career path, no, you got to do something that's going to support you. Yeah. So I didn't go to art school, but it isn't like I stopped being an artist.
It didn't stop you.
I
Yeah.
did stop being an artist for a brief period of time at my great peril, which I can get to that story. Yeah.
So interesting. So did you grow up in California?
Um, I call myself bi-coastal. My parents divorced. My mom lived on the East Coast and my dad moved to California when I was, I think, around 6 or 7. So I spent I kind of really feel like I'm from California, even though I wasn't born here. I spent the most time here.
What part of the East Coast did you grow up on?
Connecticut is where we were.
Okay. That's pretty too. I mean, you've had like the pretty grow environments to grow up in. That's, that's pretty cool.
So it sounds like you recognized really a part of yourself, and then you grew up and tried to take the adult route, like getting the job or career route or whatever you did. I'd love to hear more about that.
Sure.
Was there a specific turning point when you were like, off base? Like, I need to get back on track?
Yes, they're very vivid turning point. Let's see. I had been painting and making. I got into sewing. I've always been like a maker. And at some point in my late 20s, I kind of froze. I didn't even understand it at the time. I can understand it more looking back, but at the time, it was just like somebody put on the brakes, and I was blocked. I couldn't paint. I had a painting that I was working on, and maybe it was done, and maybe it wasn't done, and I got afraid to mess it up, and I got afraid to mess anything up, and I stopped. I kept sewing because I was very precise. It's like you cut out this piece and you piece it to that piece. It was a lot less predictable. Couldn't blow up on you like a painting might.
Yeah.
It seems like it was almost a 5-year period.
Wow.
And I remember it so distinctly. It was right around Valentine's Day. And I loved making Valentines. And I was working at a job where I got to be creative. It was for a rubber stamp company. So I got to do some illustration and I got to do some
Cool.
graphic production and just production work, getting the art ready to make a stamp. And yeah, it was a great fun job. I loved it. Loved it so much. And I usually loved making Valentines. Like that was like my jam. Like I'd make Valentines for everybody I knew. And I got to work and I felt like all this stuffing had been knocked out of me. I just felt so fatigued and just drained of life. And a really vivid thing happened. I was meeting with a group of women. We were meeting regularly. It's kind of a small impromptu women's group. And I said to them one day, I feel like my soul is dying. I was almost shocked.
How old were you?
I was I was 33.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, 32 or 33. And I was kind of shocked, quite frankly, these words that came out of my mouth.
Yeah.
But it really aptly described my state. I was depressed. I wouldn't have named it depression back then. I was depressed. I was blocked creatively. And I also didn't know that I had chronic fatigue. I didn't know. I got the flu and like I never got over it kind of feeling. You know how you feel like right after the flu? It's like how I felt.
Like done. Your whole body's drained.
And I just, like, I was really desperate to kind of feel alive. And I moved to New Mexico.
Sure.
That was my response.
Yeah, let's do it. I like it. Big change of scenery. I like it.
And
New Mexico's really cool, by the way.
it's amazing.
I love New Mexico.
It was really like my soul journey. I spent 2 years there.
Okay.
And I recovered myself as an artist. It's kind of an act of desperation.
Sure.
Desperate to feel alive. And while I was there, I really had this realization of like, well, if I don't at least try to paint, like I had this kind of like imagination, like you're on your deathbed and you're looking back at your life. And I thought, if I don't at least try to paint, I will bitterly regret it at the end of my days.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I wasn't willing to do that.
I'm 32 and like you're 33 going through this and I'm just like, I don't know that I've ever had an experience where I felt like that. So that's amazing to me at a young age. Like that's amazing to me.
I think we're hearing more about it now, which tells you the journey between then and this was 90s, right? Yeah. So just now we're having more therapists come to us and talking about how they want to address women's mental health, specifically when they've lost their identity, when they've made themselves feel small for a narcissistic partner, when they have lost their way in some sort of fashion, fighting with depression, anxiety, words that I'm pretty sure were not used that much in the 90s. Webster's.
Or if it was like this chronic like
Yeah.
person. Yeah, you know, like just this extreme version, and it's really not. Like
There
it's
was that
just
comedian talking about growing up with depression, and her dad was like, "Eat more peanut butter," like whatever it was.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like the loneliness is real when you get in that stage. I've been there, coming out of motherhood. We're hearing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
okay. So let's go back.
Yeah.
You picked up your life and just moved to New Mexico, or did you have like a job? Like what was the what was the
It was, like I said, it was kind of an act of desperation. I did have a close friend. She was kind of like an adoptive mother to me, who is an artist, or was an artist. She's passed now. And she and her husband moved to New Mexico. So I did have, like,
you had like a connection. It wasn't just like threw a dart at a map situation.
no.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
I mean, it was inspired by the film Thelma and Louise, and seeing that landscape. I mean, I just saw that landscape, and something in me like woke up. I was like, there's life.
New Mexico is what part of New Mexico were you in?
I was just north of Santa Fe.
Okay.
Fe.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It is beautiful.
Gorgeous. So here's where it all kind of really got going. Lots of artists around. So made friends with artists who encouraged me. I was gifted two amazing books. One was The Artist's Way, which I did. You don't read this book, you do this book.
Okay.
It's a 12-week course in creative recovery. I can't big
Interesting.
plug. Julia Cameron, Goddess, amazing book, self-help book.
Now I want to go read it. Okay. Well, do
Yeah.
it, I guess.
It's an incredible book. So I had that. Another artist, like a lot of artists adopted me. They just were like, girl, come on.
Well, and that's the other part of New Mexico is there's so many in New Mexico, even like that I know of that are just
It was
it's a
incredible.
great place.
Just incredible. That's talking about creativity and healing, community is it's such a vital ingredient. And we'll get to it, but that's what my classes are. There's two huge tables that I'm sitting at, and we have a circle of people, mostly women, who come together and get support for wherever they are, however they are.
I love that.
Fast forwarding.
Yeah, I still, so you're in New Mexico, you're getting there. What did you do? Like when you got there, was it just kind of like a break for a while or did you?
Yeah, I was able, I did a little bit of freelance. So I did get training in the graphic arts. This was pre-computer, mind you. So it was
Yeah.
paste up and, all that. And so I had that skill. So I went to the local print shop and I said, hey, you need some work done? Here I am, kind of thing. Ballsy in my 30s.
I love it. Yeah.
So yeah, just this is and that's and odd jobs, and I was able to collect California unemployment. I don't even remember how that worked, but I was, and
Amazing.
it was a healing time. So the other book, and I also worked with an art therapist. So
Okay.
the other book was Art is the name of the book, and it's fantastic. This book articulated every question I had that I didn't even have the words for, about
That's so
why
interesting.
people get stuck and why people stop. And, so those two books, and I found this amazing therapist who worked somatically, expressively, and, like this kind of community, these books, my own inner work, this therapist kind of like all came together, and I was painting again.
And not stuck and not just like,
Not
is
stuck.
it done? Is it not done? Is it done? I
Yeah,
know what that
well, I
feels like.
learned a lot. I mean, it was such a time of self-study, because I'd be driving around or out hiking or sitting looking at the mountains, and I'd have like all this like inspiration, feel uplifted. Yeah, and I could paint that, and it could go like that, and it could go like that, and be all like, and then, I'd get to my easel and it'd just be like,
It'd be gone.
just feel dead.
Oh,
Be like, what happened? What happened? Where did that desire go? And so that became my object of study, desire and its ways, I guess. And so I did learn a lot. Also supported by The Artist's Way and this other book, Art and Fear and Therapist, was like, if I have this idea in my head and I try to perfectly execute that idea,
it
it
doesn't work.
falls apart. It just falls apart. If I don't take risks, the energy, like I just watch, like my energy, I didn't have a whole lot of energy. So it was very vivid when I had it and I didn't have it. I'd like have it and then all of a sudden be like on the floor and I'd be like, okay, what just happened?
Is that something you're still struggling with now?
No, no. I'm,
Are you still struggling with the chronic fatigue, or is that part of just
That was part of the
recovery?
it was a long bout and, there is like, Vanderkolk, his first name, I'm forgetting. The Body Keeps Score. He's a very renowned therapist, writer, and researcher on trauma.
interesting.
I'm really blanking his first name, but Vanderkolk is his last name. And he wrote this book called The Body Keeps Score. And so, as I went along on my healing journey, my body came along on the
Right.
healing journey. And, there's stuff, right? Supplements and treatments and, anxiety is a terrible, terrible tax on our physical.
It's amazing how
100%.
how
That
cortisol.
yeah, it's depleting like nothing else, really.
So you talked about the rediscovery of desire. Is that something that you talk about now with your classes? And you sound so passionate about it. I have to imagine that it's something that you bring up in conversation from your.
What I talk about is the gap.
Oh,
I talk about, people will lament this gap. Like, I have this thing in my mind, and what happens on the page is so horrible. They don't match. And I'm like, no, the gift is in the gap. The gift is
interesting.
in the not knowing. If we can really like allow the gap, but like just here's what I talk about, using our ideas as jumping off places, as, okay, a doorway or a diving board, not a destination. And I think that's true, like with life, with relationships, with any creation. It doesn't have to be, a page in a visual journal or a painting that hang on the wall. I think too.
Can you give me half a second? Let me move this dog trying to climb me.
I don't know if you know this, but I am a dog magnet.
She heard you. She knew. Sorry. Normally she's so good. She just kind of stays down there, but today she decided to become one of the.
Yeah,
She heard you. She knew.
yeah, I know. I just randomly come up to me all the time. I do love them dearly. So that's what I talk about is the opportunity to kind of loosen our grip on the rails and let life move through you in a way. Let our intuition speak, let our bodies speak, let our emotions speak instead of being so ruled by the head.
Yeah. So you're saying to use the gap not as a visualization of a whole per se, but as a starting point for the inspiration.
Yeah,
Like don't be so hard on the gap.
right, right. It's like,
I think that's hard. Like my
it is
brain is
hard. It's
how.
very hard. Again, it's
You
that
had me at letting go. Like I don't know how to do that.
no, it's no failure on your part. It's the paradigm. It's what we're taught in school. We're rewarded for the answer. We're not rewarded for our curiosity. We're not rewarded for how to figure it out. I mean, this is a thing. It's called a growth mindset. And I don't remember the sociologist who coined the term or is researching it, but that, they took a group of kids and they said, okay, group A, you know, you're all going to get graded on your, facts and knowing the material. Group B, you're going to get like graded and rewarded by how many experiments you make, basically. I think there was
That would be where my kids would thrive.
right. And so that's a creative mindset. It's like, what if? What if I do this way? What if I use red? What if I use black? What if I use purple? What if I turn it upside down? What if I bring in a pencil? What if I cut it up and rearrange it? It's like that's generative. There's a real aliveness.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Okay, so I want to go back. You're in New Mexico, you've done all this. Then how did you get from that to where you are now?
Oh my God. Okay. So when I read The Artist's Way, I just had this feeling like, whatever she's doing, I want to do.
That's amazing.
That's who I am. I want to teach this. And love brought me back to California.
Sure.
And so that's a good reason to come back.
Yeah, I mean,
And so I'm back in California. And my dear friend, Irene, who was my adopted mom, who lived in New Mexico, told me about this workshop, class, I don't know what to call it, called the painting experience. And so even though I was painting and I was learning a lot and felt like I knew a lot, I still kind of found myself tiptoeing a bit. I wasn't quite as free as I desired to be or imagined I could be. And so when I got back to California, because the painting experience was here, I looked them up and it took a little bit. Now I got a job and this and that. And finally, like right time, right place, right schedule, boom, I took the painting experience. And it was phenomenal. It was like that last little missing piece around freedom.
what is the painting experience?
It's the painting experience. It's a little hard to describe. It's like if a meditation retreat were a painting workshop.
Okay. Yeah, so it's like is it a couple days? Is it weeks?
Yeah,
Like are you
it's usually held over, either a series of classes, which I took like 8-week thing, or, like an intensive, like a 3-day or 7, 5, 10-day intensive. Basically, everyone's invited, artists, non-artists. In fact, artists have a harder time with it.
Okay.
There's a blank piece of paper on the wall, and there's a row of every color imaginable of tempera paint and a set of brushes. And your instructions are to go over to the paint table, pick a color.
One color?
Pick a color. Just pick a color, right?
I don't know. I can do it.
Right? No ideas. It's okay. You have an idea, but your idea is going to get in your way. Go pick a color, go back to your paper, do something, come back, pick the same color, rinse out your brush, pick another color, go back to your paper, do something. Don't be looking at your painting, turn your back on it, just trust that it knows where it's going. It is this like supreme exercise in trusting your intuition, to just know that something's going to happen and I'm not in charge of it. It's like a dream.
How do you not like panic
It
about
sounds like my worst nightmare.
Yeah. I'm thinking like what's it going to look like? It's going to be so awful. It's going to be
No,
tragic.
it does. It brings us totally up against this edge of how we want to control things, how we want to look good, how we want to be in charge, how we want to know. Oh my God, I could go on and on and on. And it's hard to get, and it's hard to describe that it's not about the painting. It's about us. And this is how I liken it to a meditation retreat. Because if you're just sitting on a cushion for 3 days or 5 days or 10 days, you're going to encounter the same stuff. There's my mind doing what my mind.
I think I would rather do the painting retreat than the like. I don't know. My brain just doesn't work in silence very well.
I was doing a group
There is-
therapy for business owners once, and like the homework was sit still, do nothing for 20 minutes. And I guarantee you, like all the women in the group were like, can we sleep? Can we read? Can we do we
What,
can't.
you just stare at nothing?
We can't let our minds take us where we don't know it's going.
Yeah. It's a spiritual work to really meet, to like, okay, I have a plan. So what?
Yeah.
I have a plan.
That's so
So
cool.
what? I mean, every day I have a plan. So what? Right. But
Well, and it's not to like say don't plan. It's more to
it isn't
like
to say don't plan, but it's
trust.
also to say, our plans can cause us tremendous amounts of anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Because we can't control for everything.
Mm-mm.
And, our plans don't work out exactly. We get depressed, we get defeated. I feel like I might be veering off course a bit, but
Wonderful.
That's what I love about these conversations is
yeah,
they just go where they need to go.
I mean, this is kind of my sort of, not sort of, but my kind of my existential Buddhist leaning, valence toward, kind of basic attitude towards life. But after, I kind of took to the painting experience a bit like a duck to water, having done my previous where does my desire go work.
Yeah, sure. I mean, to me, that makes sense. When you said artists have a hard time with it, I was like, oh my gosh,
It
they
doesn't
do.
look good.
Yeah.
No, actually, the best thing I ever did was be willing to paint an ugly painting.
Yeah, like that makes me like cringe. But my kids do that all the time. Like they'll just draw a scribble and they're like, it's done, it's beautiful.
Well, the premise behind the painting experience is to create a situation that puts you in the child place, which is why we hate it so
Yeah.
much, right?
The more, I mean, obviously, like I've had two children, and the more that it is so, like, I have to remind myself constantly not to like squash things for them. Like my daughter yesterday wanted to try out for the school talent show. Hadn't practiced at all. Wanted to do a duet with her friend
She's
that
fearless.
again, they've never practiced together. And I was just like wrestling internally like do I discourage this or do I just say, yeah, do it? And so she did it and she got in the car and she said, well, we messed up pretty big. Like, but you did it. Like you tried. And there weren't a lot of them that came out. They had to pick them up at 4. There were only like 6 of them.
Oh my
I'm like,
gosh.
Adeline, that's amazing. Like you tried.
Yeah,
And now practice helps.
right.
But
I mean, it's both, right? It's, yeah, of course we want to develop skills. Of course we want competency and, all of that. Of course we do. And that's not a bad thing. It really isn't.
you can't squish the like creativity and the creative side of it to get that. And that may work. I think that that does work for some people and some kids. But like I like the school that my kids are at now because I feel like they really encourage the creativity along with the learning, so it's not
Yeah,
so rigid.
yeah, exactly.
But
Well, this could be like super simplistic bumper sticker motto of mine, but I do believe that we're we're suffering from a failure.
I 100% agree with that. I look back at even my education and like the stuff I did even as a little kid. And then I went to school to be an interior designer. And so I took a lot of art classes. I did a lot of art and the focus was not on the creativity and like, which it should be. I mean, you're essentially decorating something that needs a voice and like, something. And they would focus more on like your measurements are wrong or your lines aren't straight or blah, blah. And it's like, okay, you're missing
Missing.
there's something missing.
Yeah,
And so I graduated and I just didn't, I hated it. I went into the workforce and I was like, this sucks. Like,
yeah.
this is not creative. It's not fun. It sucks.
That just breaks my heart. That just really breaks my heart. And I think it happens to so many of us.
Yeah. Well, and then, I mean, I got off of it and now I do it. Like, I love doing what we do because it's creative and I get that freedom to do it. But, there was that time where I didn't have a job and it was like, I don't think this is a bad thing. I think this is a turning point for me.
Yeah.
I think to draw some parallels too, we do talk to a lot of therapists daily who are struggling to really commit to the specialty that they feel called to do because one schooling told them to keep it generic or to speak to everyone. You have obviously carved out a very special specialty. Like, what were the challenges in really committing to it for a practice? And do you have any advice for other therapists who have a calling but maybe on that kind of
Yeah.
unwilling to commit to it, fearful? Maybe they're trying to overcome the fear.
Yeah. Let me just fill the gap. Just how I got into art therapy. The painting experience was my stepping stone.
Mhm.
In that work, so I wound up facilitating it, is what happened. I took to it like a duck in water. I was a student for a while, then I was an apprentice.
Facilitating the experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what I saw was like this incredible psychological gold, people's like inner world worlds were coming out. But because it's not therapy,
That's so cool.
we just don't touch it. And I thought, well, I don't want to leave all the gold on the table.
I
When
think
I
that's
decided to go to school, and I got my BA in psychology, and I got into an art therapy program. There's a great one here in the Bay Area.
Oh, you went to school specifically for art therapy? That's so cool. I didn't even know that. I thought, how did school and then like break? Like I could imagine that being so rigid and this, but that's so cool. I didn't know that that was even an option.
It's the only graduate level program other than an MFA where you get to take your artist along.
Oh, that's so
It
cool.
was just like, yeah, this is where I belong.
Yeah, I
It's a
can't
big
even
deal.
imagine. Okay, so how did you decide that therapy was like that was what you wanted to do? Because you're an artist, you're doing this art stuff, but then how did you want to, was it just because you wanted to continue helping people?
Well, I I was so helped by psychology,
Yeah.
and also so personally informed by dreams. Again, not leaving the gold on the table, working those dreams and being guided by them and being informed by them. So it was this kind of felt like this creative marriage, right? Where I could be an artist, I could be my psychologically aware and interested self, and very dedicated to, emotional healing and mental growth, and all of it. It just seemed to all kind of dovetail and come together. But I want to answer the renegade question because I love that. Just love that because, yeah, I mean, people aren't cookie cutters or cookies, nobody is, right? And they're
Even cookies, like you cut them in the same shape and they do their own thing in the oven.
spread out.
Yeah, I mean, like, you do a gingerbread man and all of his little limbs start growing together in the oven, but
Yay.
yeah,
Yay. I mean, I was born into a non-conforming body.
yeah,
And, at some point I realized, well, I'm not going to look like everybody looks in, Cosmo magazine because my legs are like half that size. And, thankfully I had creative parents.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, that's a very lucky thing in that too.
And I would encourage any and all therapists, to follow that. It's like how we do in art, follow that little spark of what calls you, whether it's a color or an image or a population or an issue, that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to talk about art therapy because I am not I've never done art therapy. Honestly, I didn't even know there was a school until about 5 minutes ago. I think that's so cool. But I want to talk about it. So just like, basic, what is art therapy? Like what, because I'm imagining you're going in and are you painting and talking, or is it just, what does that
So
look like?
I can't speak for all of art therapists working in all settings with all populations.
Yeah, we'll just speak specifically to your practice.
I mean, people work in different ways.
Oh, sure.
So, but the ground, if you will, is that it can be really hard to articulate and know all that we're experiencing. And it's that old adage that a picture's worth 1,000 words, that we can be informed through the process of creative expression
Yeah.
and helped through seeing it. And, I feel like I want to give it a kind of a variety of examples because people come with different things and people are different. And, I think in its most fundamental, I really invite people to come into their bodies. It's a tremendous source of wisdom. The body doesn't lie. Somebody can be calmly saying, about their situation. And I'll ask them like, well, what are you feeling in your belly? And they're like, oh, there's a knot.
I feel that all the time.
There's a knot in there. Right. Oh, yeah. Okay. I won't go into the news. And so, okay. Does that knot have color? How big would you say that knot is? What knot is it? What size paper do we need? Invite people to draw it, scribble it. Let's give it form, because now it's out here. Now we can have a relationship to it. We can just dialogue with it. We can just kind of inquire. If we could see something in that knot, what would it be? I've got this huge bookcase that's pre-sorted collage images, and somebody will say, well, gosh, I see a tiger in there. So let's go find a tiger and collage that thing in there. So it's now we're not in opposition. Oh, I have this terrible knot. I just wish it would go away, or pretend it's not there. Now we're in a dialogue. Now we're in a kind of a related quality. Okay, check in. How's that knot doing now? Does that knot need something? Does it need a color? Does it need a something? Maybe somebody goes and gets some sky blue, some pink, starts attending to this knot.
I want to go to your therapy lessons. This is so good. Like, can I get my paper out real quick and like start? That's amazing.
Often I'll start my classes having people just scribble. Okay, let's just make a big mess and get it out of the way.
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
it's like one of those impulsive things. Like, what if I just scribble all over it? We'll do it. I like that. Let's do it.
Scribbling, I start many, many, many pages.
Okay.
Just to get there. Just the blank page can be such a showstopper.
It is also scary.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
That's totally what I mean. It's like, oh my
Because there's so
God,
many
what am I
possibilities that
gonna
it
do?
like paralyzes you.
It's
Yeah.
like, just do something, please. There, I'll do something. So, yeah, I mean, that's a little bit of a flavor. Listen for people's images when they're talking. The situation is like there's a boulder in the path. Yeah,
So good.
draw it. Let's make it tangible, or let's put it in clay. Gosh, I mean, the directions it can go are so vast and varied, and people are taking, like the CBT model, and like having people draw out like CBT scenarios. So like, the win lose if you do X or Y behavior. In the Jungian realm, let's give voice to our dreams through grief. I have people make like beautiful little shrines from like old cigar boxes with, their lost loved one's image, and, it's incredible honoring and grief process work.
That's cool.
So it's as vast as the imagination, really. For me, it's a relational process, both with the client and their art, the client, or facilitating a kind of a relational process between the client and their own art. I did my thesis with elders. I did my internship practicum at a hospital setting, and people like, there's all these great benefits about doing art in a medical setting, and you go into somebody's room with your art cart and you'd be all like, yeah, let's play. And they'd be like, get out.
I can't even imagine like just rolling in and they're like, leave. And you're like, you don't want me to, promise.
So
I would not kick you out. Like you just like your presence and your voice and the way that you're explaining things, like it's
Very
just like I
compassionate,
know
right?
it's like making me want to like go do something, and I like it. I think I think you are in your calling 100%.
Yeah, no, this is definitely, I feel my passion for it. But I did my thesis on a relational, a shared drawing.
Interesting.
So people, like I had like a set of markers, and I said, let's play a game. I mean, it's based on, it has predecessors. Is that the word? Not thinking the right word, but there's precedence.
Yeah.
Pick a color, I'll pick a color. You start, you can make a mark, you can make a shape, make anything, and then it's my turn and I'll make something. And so together we co-create a picture. And very often people's core concerns come out in these pictures.
Like in the picture or while they're talking to you?
In the picture, like a trap door.
Interesting.
Okay, that's what your illness feels like. Like you're walking along and all of a sudden there's this trap door.
Wow. That's just amazing. Because like I'm thinking that would be such a fun thing to even do with my kids. Like
Totally, it's the best thing to do with kids.
just like get off a screen. Let's just paint.
Yeah.
I tried doing therapy with my son once. He was 4 or 5, going through big feeling stage where everything was just volatile. And so, of course, you know me, I read a book and it was like, try getting him to draw something. I was like, great. And so, like, he was having big feelings, like, in the back of the car. I'm like, I'm prepared. Like, I handed him some paper and I was like, if you can't tell me how you're feeling, draw. And he's like, I don't want to draw how I'm feeling. And his sister goes, I'll draw how you're feeling. And she went and like scribbled out like her thing. And they had the biggest fight ever because he was like, stop drawing my feelings. She's like, you're ripping up my drawing. And it like,
gosh.
by the end of it, it was so chaotic. But like he was upset because he wanted to draw the feelings that she had like drawn. It was like a whole ridiculous like argument. And that's like what's now in my brain. For
But I feel like
therapy.
it got you somewhere.
It did. Well, it got me home,
Very
you
cathartic.
know.
Yeah.
Very cathartic. I mean, somebody's got to express the feeling.
It was just funny.
My first kid, she loves to color and draw. My dad is a lawyer. He's probably one of the most artistic people I know, but he's a lawyer.
Your dad is?
Yeah, like he can draw a cartoon character from memory. You know exactly, like it looks exactly like it. Like he's just very talented, but same thing. He grew up in the 60s and it was like you have to get a real job. So he is an attorney. But I think that art part of him is still there and it started coming out. Like he plays a lot of instruments, but he got really into it when I was a kid. Like we would paint together a lot and he got really excited about buying me, art stuff. So I always had like kind of ridiculously fancy art stuff. But then when I went to college and I needed, like those drafting pencils and all that stuff, he got really into going and doing that. And so they came this last time and we did the same thing with my daughter who's 7. We took her to Jerry's Artorama, which is fantastic in Nashville. And I mean, she was like in heaven. She went nuts. And he was just like, yeah, throw it in, throw it in. I don't know how much money he even spent, but it was just like piles of art supplies and that's what they did.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
It was and I remember that with my dad. Like that was such a part of my relationship with my dad. So I think that's really cool.
That's my daughter's doing sewing with my mom, and that's building their relationship and pretty cool. Okay, so getting back to adults. So you worked with elders, and then have your clients transitioned, or what do they look like?
Yeah, what's your
nowadays?
demographic? Like, are they
It's
young?
range. I have a handful of clients who are in their early 20s, just loving that group.
Yeah.
And it seems like all my 30-year-olds graduated. So I have these 20-year-olds, and then we like way out. And
What do you mean they graduated? Like, how do you graduate?
from therapy.
Yeah.
They feel like they got what they needed and they're ready to
Yeah.
the nest of therapy, and it's just such a beautiful, beautiful thing.
That's so cool.
They're not feeling so depressed or feeling more confident about
they have an outlet.
Relationships or setting boundaries or how they feel about themselves. I mean, that's I think at the core of everything I do is how do you feel about yourself? And so yeah, I mean, some people stay a really long time and do all kinds of really deep and ongoing work, and other people do a kind of a piece, and it's all valid. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. So anyway, my current, most of the people I work with tend to be midlife and up, which is really where I love to work. And my groups and my classes are definitely all midlife and
Are
up.
you primarily classes and workshops, or do you do one-on-one with people?
It's a kind of a fun mix of all three.
That's really cool.
Yeah, one-on-one and groups and classes and online.
And what types of classes are you offering?
So, excuse me.
And workshops. You do workshops too, right?
I do workshops also, yes. So I have currently, what do I have? I have a Wednesday. It really gathered steam. I was so delighted. I love working in the context of a sketchbook. Doing art journaling or art journaling, creative journaling, visual journaling, mixed media journaling. It goes by a lot of names, but we're, drawing and painting and collaging and writing and reflecting in the bounds of a sketchbook. And I like the bounds of a sketchbook because it takes some of the performance pressure away, right? You're not going to hang your sketchbook on the wall.
Yeah, it's just for you.
It's personal. Yeah.
Or if you want to share, you can.
So that class is a bit of technique combined with some self-reflective prompt, and people can take it wherever they want to take it. In anything I do, it's all about community building. So in the end, we share work, kind of go around and look, and people can talk about it or ask. And so there's a community component. Then I have a couple of, it's kind of a kind between a hybrid and a therapy group. I call them lunar creation circles. I love astrology. But what I love is navigation. I love navigation. I love that sense of how am I oriented towards the bigger world?
So I love that. Yeah.
What is that? Where's the moon?
Yeah.
The question is, where's the moon? So we meet near the new moon and the full moon. And there's a symbolic significance, right? In way back before we had a lot of electric light, the moon would disappear, be totally dark.
Yeah.
And really time to get deeply quiet. And then there'd be this little sliver of a moon, and the light would grow and grow and grow, until it's rising, and rising as the sun is setting, fully illuminated. And so there's this we plant seeds in around the time of the new moon when it's waxing. And, we think about where are we when it's fully illuminated, and what do we need to release when it's waning? And so kind of trying to sync up our inner lives with these bigger rhythms.
I love that. I think that that's cool.
Yeah, people are loving it. I have one group that they just keep traveling together. So, over the course of a year, this really strong community, and people, they come with their lives and their intentions. It's really positive.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, I know that you have a meeting in a couple minutes, and I don't want to keep
on. I'm sorry.
No, I know that you have a meeting and it's getting that time. So I
might have to do round two.
I know.
This is so interesting.
I'm like, you let us know your next workshop, because I want to fly my.
I am looking to develop online offerings.
So I need to leave and go to California and be in your little studio with all of your stuff.
Beautiful studio.
Yeah. It's so cool. Thank you so much for being on this with us.
Thanks for this opportunity. It's just been really delightful to talk to you.
Yes, I feel like I could talk to you for a lot longer, but
yes, I have a lot to say.
We'll do two more. We'll do a couple. Okay, well, if anybody wants to get connected with Annie, we're going to put all of her info below. And as she develops her workshops, just be on the lookout. And if you're in California and near that area, go. It sounds, honestly, I'm jealous if you can go. But thank you again, Annie, for being with us and sharing about your art and your journey to art therapy. It was amazing.
Thank you both.
Yeah, anytime. And we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, take good care.